Hey, what's going on? My name is Anant, and in this video, I'm going to teach you something which is not just going to be related to SendMails, but if you actually spend some time learning this, it'll also help you in a lot of different aspects of your business. So I would highly recommend you that whatever you're doing, take some pause. The right place to put this video should be YouTube, but I'm also gonna put it on the Facebook community as well. So if you're watching us from the community, please spend some time learning this. And the topic for today is going to be API, right? So this is something I've already covered in the past, but now I want to show you some use case of API. I know a lot of people have asked us questions on, hey, Pabbly has very limited amount of actions that we can perform with SendMails. Like we can only add subscribers, but we wanted to do a few other things like adding a tag or updating a subscriber, searching a subscriber. There are plenty of things that you guys want to do, but you're not able to do it because of the limited amount of actions that Pabbly have. But any platform like SendMails or any other platform, what they also offer you is called as API, right? SendMails is one of them. We do offer API integrations, and we have plenty of actions to offer you over here. If you see, we have plenty of actions, like we have campaigns API, we have subscribers API, right? So if you ever want to add a user to, let's say, a list, or if you want to let's say add a new campaign or run a specific campaign, pause a specific campaign, there are plenty of things that you can actually do from here via API, right? But it's just that if you don't know the power of API, if you're not very comfortable using APIs, then you're going to miss out on these kind of features. And again, this is not just limited to SendMails. If you're using any other application, this is going to be very helpful. I mean, if you're learning this whole knowledge is going to be very helpful, because this you can apply on any other software that you're using which offers API. So spend some time here, learn this, and if you're a business owner or if you're a marketer, this is gonna help you out throughout your career, throughout your business. So yeah, let's just get dive into it. So what I want to do here is I want to show you one API without getting so much into technicalities, because I know the target audience who's watching this video is are not the developers, right? These are the marketers and business owners. I'm not going to get so much into the technicalities of what API is. Rather, I would give you some real life use case and how you can quickly test if a API is working for you or not, right? So, for you to work with API, there are few things that you have to keep in mind that you have to be always using. One you can see over here is HTTP method, which you can see over here. Second is endpoint, right? So every different action that you want to perform is going to have a different endpoint. For example, if I want to perform an action of new list, then I have a different endpoint, right? And I can expand this, and inside of it, what I get over here is the parameters. So if I want to create a new list, right? So for me to create a new list, I have the endpoint. I can hit this endpoint and I can tell that, hey, I want to create a new list. But that needs more information, and those informations are like, what is the list name, what is the default from email, right? It's the exact same thing which you have to enter in the UI, right? So these are the parameters that you have to pass when you're calling this API, right? And here's an example of that API call. Now I'm just gonna close this, and I'm gonna take a very simple API call so that I can give you an example of how you can use it. So first thing I told you is you have to remember what is the HTTP method. Here you can see there are different type of method: post, get, delete, patch. Then you have endpoints for different actions, and there is always going to be a description of what that endpoint performs. Then there is going to be the parameters, which you can see down below over here. And to authenticate that it is coming from you and not just any anyone randomly making an API call and trying to access your platform or your credentials, we also need something called as auth token, right? Which is basically to authorize that this is coming from the right person, right? So we need, like I said, we need HTTP method, endpoint, parameters, and not token. You have to just remember these four values that I've told you, and with these four values we are going to make an API calls, right? So I'm going to take a very simple API call, which is making a get request. Making a get request is the simplest form of API call that you can make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one get request, one post request, and you're all sorted with, you know, how you can make like different kind of API calls, right? So here you see get information about all lists. Let's say I want to fetch all the list and get information about all of them. What do I need to do is I need to just make an API call, which is this, right? This is the endpoint, right? So endpoint is already mentioned over here. Endpoint is nothing but, you know, whatever comes after the primary domain. So the primary domain over here is app.sendmails.io, and endpoint is whatever, you know, is going to be added after it, right? So if I copy this and I just delete this and I add this over here, this becomes my endpoint. So this is the place where I have to make an API hit so that I can fetch the information about the list. The cool part about this API request is that we don't need to pass any parameters because we are anyways fetching all the list, right? So there's nothing that we have to provide to the, you know, API endpoint. The only thing we have to do is we have to provide the API token so that, you know, it can verify that it's coming from the right person. So what I'm going to do is, before I take you to the Pabbly, I'm going to test it inside request bin. And this is a great free tool that you can use to always test any API before you create a workflow for it. So if I take it to request bin, I will copy this, right? I'm going to copy this. Now I have to do authorization. So for me to do authorization, I'll have to pass the authentication token, right? So the type of authentication which is happening over here is basic auth, and whichever is the platform, it's going to tell you what kind of authentication is happening. So you don't have to worry about it. As SendMails vendor, you know, we are telling you that we are using basic auth. You know, whichever vendor that you're using, they're going to tell you which kind of authorization that they are using, right? So for us, you know, for you to verify using our authentication token, you have to first put the username always as API_key, right? This is exactly what you have to put here. And then you have to get your API key. So to get your API key, just click on the campaign API. So I'm going to open it in a new tab, and this you have to copy, right? Now just make sure you keep it confidential, you don't share it with anyone. Now if I'm sharing this on a video, what I'm going to do later is I'm going to click on renew token so that this API token gets changed and nobody can access my account. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'll paste the password over here, which is the API token, and I'm just going to make a get request, and that's it. Now as you can see, all the lists that were created, for example, one of the lists which was created as new leads, whichever was the from email, from name, all of that you can see over here. Another list was test new leads, right? So there were two lists which was created inside of this account, and I can quickly verify this as well. So I'm going to take you to the list and you can check whether the name of these lists are same or not, right? So if I take you over here, you can see there are only two lists which were created, and we are getting the exact same thing over here, right? When exactly they were created, what is the from email, what is the from name, what is the created at, updated at, all of that you can see over here. So that is how you can fetch any information. Whenever you're trying to retrieve information, it's most likely that it's going to be a get request, but there are some exception where you might have to make a post request, right? But what we just did right now is a get request where hardly there is any requirement of parameter. Sometimes there might be a requirement of parameter where, you know, maybe, you know, you have to put a question mark and put email equals, and you have to provide that email as well so that you can fetch, you know, that particular email. So I'm going to give you an example of that as well. So let's say I want to fetch information about one single list, right? So over here, if I just copy this, so I can go ahead and copy this. Now this is where I have to actually provide a parameter, right? So if I copy and paste this over here, then I have to provide the list ID. So list ID, I can fetch it from here. You can see these are the UIDs. So I'm going to take one of the list, right? I'm going to just delete this, paste it, and send it. Now before I hit send, I want to remind you that if you ever want to use Pabbly, Zapier, or these kind of workflow automation tools, you can always nest these API calls. Like you can use the very first API call to fetch the ID, and then in the next call, using the ID from the previous call, you can make the other call, right? So I made a first call where I fetched the ID and then I stored it inside of Pabbly, and then from the previous workflow, I'm going to take it to the next workflow where I'm using that ID, I'm making a send request to fetch more about that particular list. So you can see over here, right, I can see all the other things about that list. For example, what are the fields that are created for this particular list, right? So I can see this list has only 3 fields: email, first name, last name, the contacts, statistics, how many subscribers do we have, how many open unique rates, how many click rates, all of that you can monitor from here. So if you're into reporting for your campaigns, you can always use these API to get the statistics of any list or any campaign, right? So yeah, that's how it's going to help you do things without using the platform. You can always automate all these kind of things using API. Now I have shown you 2 get requests. Now I want to show you 1 post request so that I can add a new subscriber to the email list. So how can I add a new list? One second. Okay, so here you can see I can create a new subscriber, right? Create subscriber for a mail list, right? Now this is going to be a post request, which I was talking about earlier, right? So I'm just going to click here and I need to copy this API. So I'm going to copy this API, go back here, paste this API over here, come back. Now this is where you need to provide the parameters. So parameters, what is compulsory over here is list UID. List UID is compulsory because here it's not optional, right? The things which are optional for you is tag. So if you don't want to provide a tag, it's fine, right? It's written, it's optional over here. If you don't want to provide status, it's fine, you can avoid that. If you want to provide any custom field value, you can do that from here. So there are people who are asking questions, how can I set values for the custom fields? That's how you do it, right? From here you can pick the the parameter name. Now I'll tell you how you can find that parameter name as well. So let me just first take a list so that I can actually add a new value. So I'm going to take this list and let me see what all list fields do I have. So I have only 3 fields: email, first name, last name. So I'm going to create one more list over here, and I'm going to call this as country, right? And let's call it as country. Okay, and I save this. Right now I have one custom field for each subscriber that I'm going to be adding inside the list, right? All these emails that you see right now, they have first name, last name, and country as well. Okay, so now when I'm storing these contacts, I'm not just limited to the email, but I also want to save things like first name, last name, and the country. So for me to do that, I have to pass the JSON from here, right? So this is a JSON that I have to pass. So now from the JSON, what I'm going to do is coming back here, I will take the first thing, which is list UID, right? Now there is a syntax for a JSON which you don't have to remember when you're using tools like Pabbly, but if you want to test things, then the syntax goes like there's a curly braces that you have to open and close. Now inside of that you have to put double inverted comma, put a colon, and another double inverted comma, right? Now in the first double inverted comma, you're going to put the key. This is your key, and this is where you're going to put the value. So this is list UID. Now in the list UID, let's say the list we were working on was this one. Let me just verify this, whether we added the country for this or not. Yeah. So this is the list that we are working on. So I'm just going to copy the list UID from the URL. You can copy this from URL as well. Right. Now going back to this, I'm going to paste the list UID over here. Now put a comma when you want to pass another parameter. So do the same thing, comma, right? Now I'm going to take the other value, which is email. Come here, email, and then I want to pass what is the email, right? So let's just pass email as I am testing at the rate sendmails.io, right? Now again go to the next line and we are going to pass first name. Now how do I know that I have to write it like that? How do I know I have to write first in capital underscore name? To find that, you can always go to your manage list fields, and this is where you can see, the tag value. So here it's first underscore name, and that's exactly what you have to put over here, right? Again, we have to do it name, and we do the same thing, and then we do the last thing, which is country, and then we do the same thing, right? So first name, let's say SendMails test, country United States, right? So I've added everything over here. I've also added the authorization value, I've added the JSON, and I'm just going to make a post request. Why? Because over here in the API documentation, the HTTP method has to be post. So now going back and I make a post request, you can see confirmation email sent to the subscriber, right? Why confirmation email sent to the subscriber? Because a double opt-in was enabled, but the email has been added to the list. So if I go to the subscriber and click on view all, you can see now there is 6 subscribers and this email has been added. The country is now set as United States. You have the first name, last name, and now if you see the message here, it says confirmation email sent to the subscriber. The reason for that is that in the settings we have enabled double opt-in, which means every time a new subscriber is added, they have to confirm themselves, right? So when the double opt-in is enabled, a subscriber confirmation email will be sent and a subscriber can confirm whether they want to be subscribed or not, right? So that is how you can add a new subscriber. Now you can replicate the same thing inside of Pabbly, and it's going to be much more easier when you're using Pabbly. So whatever I just did right now, I'm going to replicate here. So I'm going to make a post request. So I'm going to click on post request. I'm just going to copy this subscriber thing, paste this over here. Now we are using JSON, right? Now for the authentication, we are using basic auth, like I already told you. You're going to put API key, and here you have to paste the password, which is the API token. So I'm going to copy this, but please note that I'm going to renew the token so that nobody can misuse it. Now I have to set the parameters over here. So the parameters is going to be, first is list UID as I remember, but let me just confirm. Yes, it is list UID, email, first name and last name. So it's list UID, email, first name and last name. So I'm going to put first name, last name, country, right, and list UID. I'm going to copy this from here. See, it's very simple, right? If you just understand this, it's very simple. Here you're going to put a static value. Now here you can put a dynamic value. So this you can be fetched from your previous workflow. But for now, I'm going to keep static value. So Anant, I'm just going to put my name, Anant Gupta, test country, and let's just save and send the test request. So it says email is required. So what I missed here is I forgot to add the email. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on plus, I'm going to click on email, and here I'm going to write as test anant @sendmails.io, save and send, and all good, right? So confirmation email sent to the subscriber. And now when I come back here, over here, subscriber, you can see it's 6 subscriber, right? Now the moment I click on view all, it's going to be 7, test anant @sendmails. The country is added, everything is added over here. And if you want to update the subscriber later on, you can always do that via using the API. So right now we were using create subscriber, but you can use update subscriber. You can add the tag to a subscriber, remove a tag to the subscriber. In fact, you can find a subscriber by their email, so that if you don't know the user ID, UID of a subscriber, you can always search them by email, right? So that you can get their UID. And then once you have fetched their UID, then you can apply any tag that you want to add, or you can remove the tag that you want to remove. I hope it's gonna solve a lot of problem for you, for the guys who wanted to create some complex workflows. If you start utilizing APIs, it's gonna be a game changer for you. All right, if you have any question, drop it down in the comment below. I'll be happy to help you out. Once again, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.